Hello, class. This is Alan Crockett, and I'm going to show you a little bit how to navigate Adobe Photoshop and a little bit about the workspace. So first thing you want to do is once you have Adobe loaded, you click on the icon down in your dock. Hopefully, I would put it down in your dock. Takes a little bit to open, but you'll get to this home page. And in this home page is there's a new way to do things. You can add images here by dragging and dropping, and it gives you all kinds of suggestions here. One way is you can go File Open here, or you can hit File Open there. I tend to use this way just because I've always done it this way. So, click Open, and it'll usually take you to some kind of finder or something, and it'll give you an option to open something, and let's just open this one. Okay, so I'll show you. So that's one way to open an image. The other way is to go File, New, and you can choose just a blank canvas to start with. So there are two different ways to do that. So you can start with this like blank canvas right here, and let me move this over here. Basically, this way you would click on here and you go File, Place Embedded, and you could put an image, this same image, onto that blank piece of paper, basically, by it'll stick it in there. If it was small, you could, make it too big or whatever you wanted to do, place it into that. If you knew you wanted to do something 8.5, 11. But since we know in this case, it'll be easier to play with the image this way. So by doing File Open, the canvas will always be the exact size of your image, which is kind of a nice way to work it. I'm going to show you a quick trick that Adobe has done that you'll love. It's great. So you can, right here is what's called your toolbar, and these have all your different tools located on this side. That's your move tool, which you'll be using a lot. This is your crop tool. This is your selection tool, and that's your lasso tool, which each one of these tools, if you see this little thing on the corner, you can choose all these different tools that are hidden in amongst them in each tool. Like this is a elliptical marquee tool, there's a rectangular, single row, etc. So you kind of click on it and hold it, and it has those different things. If you just kind of hover over a tool sometimes, it's like just kind of come to it and hover. A lot of times these little pop-ups will come and tell you about that tool. Like here's the history brush tool, restores part of an image to an earlier state. Interesting tool. But I'm going to show you this little trick right here. So you take the crop tool, and if you have an image that's vertical and you want to make it horizontal, you can kind of expand it just a little bit. I've found that doing too much is hard for it to process. So you expand it a little bit, then you click on this thing called Generative Expand. Now this tool right here, this little thing, this bar, they're called these bars. These are the contextual taskbar. So you can click on this, and then you can write something in there, but most of the time it kind of guesses what you want to do. But if you wanted something specific, like make more towers or whatever you want to do, you could just say that. And right now, it's basically using AI to kind of look at the picture and determine what it looks like here and create something that would logically expand it. If you look over here on this side, there's these panels, right? And so you can click on this one, that's the first one, and you can see they're each a little different, like it did it a little differently. And take the time to see which one of these you like the best. I'm going to go with this one. And just so you know, if you hit generate, it will generate 3 entirely new ones. So if you like one, you might want to go with it. But if you don't like it, just click generate, and it'll create 3 more new ones. The other thing you can do is once you've done it and you want to go a little further, just expand a little further out on each side, you can use the AI to kind of play with it, expand off of itself then. But really good technique is to not do too much at any one time, because it'll get lost in the shuffle and it won't know what to do. So I recommend kind of expanding a little bit at a time for now, till they get better at it. And once again, let's look over here at our choices. Ooh, interesting. See, this one we get to see the back of the, There's loads of options. Anyway, once you have something you kind of like, I'm going to show you a couple other tools here. This tool right here is the eraser tool, and that allows you to erase stuff. One tool you'll be using a lot is the spot healing brush tool. A spot healing brush tool, oh, here you go. Here's something to look for. Over here are your layers, right? If you are clicked on certain layers, you can't use certain tools. Like right now, I see it's got the circle with an X. It's saying don't use this tool. If I were to click on the background, you see I get to use the tool. These are still in a state of flux. And so if you like this generative combination, one thing you can do is to flatten it back into one image instead of having it exist as multiple little images. So what I'll do is show you how to do that. Up here is your menu bar. With Photoshop, like a lot of other programs, you have a menu bar on the very top, and here you have File and all these options, Edit, all these options, Image. What we're going to do is go to Layer, and since we have these generative expanded layers, we're going to say flatten the image down. We just want to make it back into one image, and this is now a background image, and you can see this background here is locked. If you want to unlock it, then it's no longer a background image. So, and anytime you do something you don't want, you can undo it under Edit, or you can do these are the keyboard shortcuts. In this case, it's Command Z or Control Z if it wasn't a Mac. And this is really good right here if you're ever trying to understand like a shortcut. They usually have them listed all along here. So if I didn't want to have that, I would go Edit, Undo, Make Layer, and it would still be a background layer. Okay, so now that we have this one layer, let's use this healing brush tool, and you can see what happens. See how I got rid of those little spots? So if that was something you wanted to do to fix an image, you can just click little spots on it and get rid of stuff. So really quickly, I'm going to show you another tool. God, there's so many great tools here. I'm going to show you the horizontal type text tool. And if you click on this one, you can see there's horizontal and vertical type. And then there's vertical type masking. So you can basically mask your text instead of having your text be a thing on top. It creates a masking layer, which is a pretty interesting thing we'll talk about later. Fun thing to experiment, and a horizontal one. We're just going to stick with the horizontal type tool right now. And you can just click on your image anywhere and start typing. And in this case, I've already had some type. I'm going to just paste it in. And you can see what happens when you paste it in. It's too big for the image because there's so much text and it's so big. Right here is your size. If you look at your contextual taskbar that you can kind of move around here, it has all the information about text. You can see it's formatted to align center. You can have it left align or right align, and then there's all kinds of little more properties and stuff that you can do here. If you ever want to have problems with this thing getting in the way of your work, you can kind of put it to one spot and then click these three dots and say pin bar position, and it'll just stay right there. In this case, I think I already had it pinned, but anyway. So that's a good thing to know, is just to because sometimes I remember going, how do I pin that bar position? Okay. Anyway, if you want to change the size of your text, you can, just click on this and pick a new size, and you'll see it didn't do anything. And this is an important thing to remember. Right now, the text is all in there, but it's not selected because I pasted it. So what you want to do is click within the text and select it. And you can go to edit. It's select all. And then you've selected it all. And then if you change the size of the text, it will change all of it. That's a good example. You can also change the text. If you hover here, the little hand symbol will, right over there, you'll see that little hand, select font size. If you push it one way or another, you can change the size of it like this. And then when you like that, you click check mark, and you can take this and you can then, that's your move tool, you can then drag it to wherever you want to move it. Now I'm going to show you one other cool thing to do with the text. When you have your text tool selected, you can draw a rectangle or a square or whatever, whatever shape you want, really. And if you'll notice it fills automatically with Latin text. But right now, all that text is selected. So if I paste in my text, it will then fit that rectangle. It would always try to fit the rectangle. If you have a plus sign, that means your text is too big to fit in the rectangle. So once again, click on the text, and a shortcut, keyboard shortcut, is Command A, and it selects all. Command A. So you can go to select all, see Command A. And when you've selected all, do that little trick I told you about where you can kind of adjust it using this little select font size, and then click, and then you can kind of move it around like this, and it will stay within your rectangle. Now, right now, you'll notice the text's kind of hard to read. So one of the other parts of this whole workspace that I wanted to show you is that you can then go to this thing called blending options, right? And so this little FX tool down here, you click on that, and it changes how things are blended. You can create a stroke, which we'll talk about later. And if you create a stroke, you notice how almost immediately the text becomes easier to read. Additionally, because that little edge around the entire text kind of mimics some of the lines that are within the image, it gives it a nice kind of graphic connection to what you're looking at. And just so you quickly can see, there's ways you can adjust the size of your stroke. Like you can make it so big that it just turns into blur, or just a little bigger, whatever you want. You can change the opacity so it's really striking or just barely there. You can also click on this overprint thing for printing. That's kind of an interesting thing to do to make it kind of bleed in a little bit. The color, by clicking on this, it takes you to this thing called the color picker. Now the color picker is interesting because you have basically the ability to adjust your colors by moving up and down dragging this little slider up and down, or you could literally type in like a color into here if you knew the exact name of the color, or there's other color libraries you can go to. I tend to really use this a lot, just like kind of pulling down where I want to see the color. In this case, I kind of want a sepia-ish tone, so this is okay. But if I were to like click here, you see how it makes it brown, or click here, it makes this color. Sometimes when you are doing an image, the the thing you might want to do is actually click on a color within the image, and you can see this has almost a reddish tone. And this little eyedropper tool appears, which is yet another tool I'm going to show you. But if you click on the eyedropper tool in different areas of your image, you can see what its interpretation is of that image. Anyway, we're going to go back to the current so you can get back to where you were. Say OK. And we're going to say good enough with this. I think I'm going to go a little harder on that because I want to have it a little more clear. And I want a smaller, kind of sharper, and take it down to 5, but a little more clear. Okay. And I'm going to say, all right. And there you have it. If you want to like stretch your text out, you can also stretch out the text this way. That's another way to kind of play with it and make it look more interesting. But once you get it where you like it, you click that. I want to show you one other thing that Photoshop does. It's really interesting. There's this way that you can line things up. If you look, I'm kind of trying to make it happen, but you see that little pink line on the right side? When it's centered, they're called guidelines. You can kind of feel it snap if you're dragging around. And when you get it totally centered, there's a line through the middle and a line that goes horizontally, and that'll help you line things up if you want to center lines. There's also, if you highlight this down here on the layers panel, and you click on the background at the same time, up here in this little properties area, you can go to this little thing here. These are like if you want it left edges, horizontal, you can click on this and it will actually line it to the center of the background too. That's another little tricky way of doing it. And if you want it also horizontally lined, that's another way to do it. So just so you know, there's this little thing here that you can play with when you're in the move tool. And you'll notice like when you shift down here to the selection tool, you get a whole other little grouping of tools, so on and so forth, right up here, different styles of stuff that it is programmed to do. So there's a million of these tools. I don't want to, overburden you here, but the eyedropper tool is a really good one for sampling colors. This one you'll use a lot for just fixing little weird spots. Oh, I want to get back to just the background here. And then the brush tool is probably the other one you'll use a lot for playing with stuff. And the brush tool has like a bunch of different stuff within it. We're going to start using the brush tool mostly. The pencil tool is kind of like the brush tool, but it's got a few different properties. It's more about drawing paths than it is about painting. And one thing you'll notice is that this little circle kind of shows you the brush. And if you click over here, you have a menu of different kinds of brushes. You can go down to here to special effects brushes, and they have all these different kinds of brushes loaded. You can get wet media brushes, which do different kinds of stuff, and general brushes. And there's the soft brushes where the edge is kind of like soft. And then there's the hard brushes where the edge is hard. And then there's brushes if you had a pressure sensitive stylus that you were using on these, you can use those. But since most of us are probably just doing it with the mouse, you don't really have access to the pressure brushes. But the big two different ones are the hard ones and the soft ones. And usually if you're doing subtle stuff, you want to do the soft brush. And if you're using a brush and you push the letter I on your keyboard, you can change, well, once you get out of this, you can change it to the eyedropper once you close that out. Right, size 50, you can change it to the eyedropper, and I can actually sample that color right there. And with your brush, you can also determine, oh God, there's so much, what kind of properties you want it to have, whether you want it to be normal or whether you want it to darken or overlay, etc. But in this case, if I want to overlay something with that same color, you can barely see it. I've chosen one area I can, just barely make a difference. But if I were to do that, like if I don't want to do that, I just undo and it gets back. But if I did it with, say, let's just do it normal. Normal with my brush, I would just, it's a lot stronger color. Additionally, I've got the opacity down. So if I had the opacity darker, you can see I can really like make that mountain come up further, etc. I'm going to undo all that. And anyway, that gives you a little quick thing about how to kind of do stuff with your brush. One thing I'd recommend if you're going to do interesting brush work, this layers panel, by creating another layer over the top of your background, you can paint within that layer. And then you can change the opacity of that layer, etc. And you can also, it doesn't affect the background. So here's another thing to show you real quick. These little eyeballs. So if you want to see a layer, by clicking on that, you can see it. So that's a big thing right there. If I want to delete a layer, I can right click on it and click delete layer. And you say, yeah. So there you have it. That's a bunch of stuff. What else do I want to show before ending here? I think that's good for today. When you finally kind of are happy with what you have in some fashion, one thing you can do is you go File and Export. Of course, you want to do File Save, and it will save it. This is actually good. Okay, so because it was a JPEG when we started, it's telling us that because we have text on there, we can't save it as a JPEG. So we have to say OK, and it will save it as a Photoshop document, and we can save this as a Photoshop document. I'm going to cancel this because I don't really care about this, but what you're going to do when you hit export, you'll see it's different. You export as, and it's saying, oh, it's a JPEG, that's fine. So if I go to a 7, that makes the quality better. You could be a JPEG or a GIF, and when we're doing this for the class, I would recommend that you keep at least one side close to 1,000. Like, this is pretty easy to upload, but if you get higher, you will have a harder time uploading. But just a quick note on size. For printing, you pretty much want something about 3,000 pixels. So I would definitely have a larger image if I was, like this is only 672 kilobytes, which is very small. It's not even a megabyte. So you could save this as like, say 4,000, and you'd see that now we're up to 3 megabytes. And now we have a much clearer, larger image that, is going to print better. But for uploading to the class, I would keep it at 1,200 to 1,000. And right now it's set to, keep it, the ratio the way you want it. So anyway, then you click export and you say, fine, I don't care if it's, saved as a JPEG in that way. And then you name it, whatever you wanted to name it. And let's see, the towers. And save it to I would recommend you create a folder and you start saving stuff into a folder, because one thing I've seen happen is that people save stuff. If you've saved it to documents, it'll go back to where it last was. So if you have a digital imaging class folder, everything will get saved into that. So I recommend saving it that way. And there you have it. There's your first overview of all the different parts of the Photoshop workspace and how to navigate a little bit in that workspace. I will be showing you little bits and pieces so you don't get too overwhelmed for each and every project that we work on. And yeah, different ways to adjust the image so that you can do cool stuff. But that's the basic overview for working in Photoshop. And try it out, mess around with it, and see what happens. Okay, bye.